Hey guys, I want to give an update of where I'm at with the NetPi network analyzer. You may remember a post a few days ago on Reddit, networking subreddit about this. It's essentially an open source software solution for network analysts or network administrators. It runs on top of the Raspberry Pi hardware platform, which is pretty cheap, available online. And the intent for it is to make a tool set for network admins to be able to test ports out in the field, or build documentation, save some notes, various other things. You'll see what all functions it can do in a minute. I'm going to try and keep this video pretty short, and I'll have a lot more information tomorrow in the release notes as far as build information of what hardware you're going to need, with links on Amazon to purchase it. I'm going to update the GitHub repository with all the open source scripts, and I'm also going to release a rolled up image that you can dump onto an SD card and hopefully run. I'll make sure I test that internally before I put that out. So with that being said, it's going to be released under the GNU GPLv3 license. If you go to tldrlegal.com, you can check out kind of what that means. My main goal is to not have anyone make a commercial spin-off of this, because if I were going to try and sell it and become a millionaire, I would have done it myself, which unfortunately I don't think it's going to be able to do. With that said, there's also a lot of open source scripts and various functions that it runs on top of. So this is more of kind of patchwork than anything too unique. But with that being said, it is pretty useful. So I'm going to switch over and show you real quick the GitHub repo here. I'm going to update all the functions tonight. There's a lot of changes and a lot of new scripts that have been added, so make sure you check that out. So switching over to the device itself, if you take a look at the webcam feed that I hope isn't refocusing on you too much, then you can see that the start screen, when it first boots up, puts us into stealth mode. There's three different modes: stealth, active, and pen test. The quick summary of the differences between them: stealth does not allow the device to communicate any packets out onto the network, and ideally this should keep it from identifying itself and tripping any layer 2 security protocols like port security or .1x. Active allows the device to communicate on the network actively, which is going to allow you to do more functions that you can't do, obviously, if you can't talk on the network. And you'll see what those functions are in a moment. And pen test mode is kind of more of a security tool set. It's active in the sense that the network is allowed to talk as well. So you'll see what pen test entails in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and start up stealth to start out with. And you can modify it so that one particular function opens when the device boots, so that you don't have to open that up. And maybe if you have a most commonly used function, since this runs on a Linux operating system, a lot of questions that you have about small modifications are going to be easily Googled, and you'll be able to find solutions for them. So looking at the functions of the stealth mode, you can see the first two are LLDP info and CDP info. These are going to provide you information to based off whatever is plugged into your ETH0 interface. So that's your physical network cable interface, not your wireless. I'm not going to run those in this pre-release video just because I don't have this thing plugged into anything that's producing those packets. I have seen them both function though. When they get done running, they'll pop open a web page for you that shows you what the output was. CDP picked up some packets from my VoIP phone that was in the process of recycling. I'm going to run at least CDP tomorrow on a Cisco router that I should have coming in the mail. So that's one of the dependencies on release, is making sure that everything still functions the way that I expect it to, and also to get some time benchmarks for you. I'll cover while I'm talking about those two, as well as the internet speed test, which is in the active mode. They keep active logs of every test you run. So not only will they pop up a web page with a clean output for you, they also save that info to a text file based on the current timestamp to seconds. So if you run it again 1 second later, it's going to make a new log file. Those log files are stored where you can easily get to them from a Windows box, so you can remote into this thing and pull off backlogs later of metrics or stats that you pulled out in the field. Moving on, the third option here is the DIA topology editor, which I'm hoping I didn't just start twice by double clicking with the touchpad. I guess double clicking there was a habit for some reason. So DIA or DIA, I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced. I should have probably Googled that ahead of time. Is a map editor, kind of like Visio. And we did run it twice. Let me kill one of them. Okay. So what you can do with this program is you can switch over to whatever icons you want to use. So I just went to the Cisco ones down there, and you can knock off some of the toolbars and stuff that take up some of the space since you have a small resolution. A lot of these graphical applications are designed for larger resolutions, so you're going to have to do a small modification like that. I tried to make anything full screen that I could. Anything that I had control over running from the shell to make better for you, I did in this in their initial opening. But so you can see just an example. You're going to be able to, out in the field, kind of make network topologies on the fly, and you can add text, do whatever you want, and then you can save this, right? And then you can reference it later. So if you have something that doesn't have good documentation and you're heading out to check it out, you can use this, or honestly, you can grab a pencil and a piece of paper. I'm not gonna lie, when you're out there, it's all about doing it the most efficient way possible. But this is an option for you if you find that as being useful when you're out in the field. We're gonna go ahead and not save, or when you're at a offsite or something. So that was the topology editor. WLAN fix, the lower left there, you'll see that. Turns out that the Raspberry Pis, and it may just be this wireless card that I'm using, I'll make sure that I reference that in the build list, have a tendency to drop their wireless connection if there's no activity for about a minute. So that's an issue if you're trying to remotely manage this thing from the wireless interface, IP. So the WLAN fix opens up a terminal shell that pings your default gateway on the wireless LAN interface. It finds the default gateway automatically, so ideally you're using DHCP, or you can set it statically. Just make sure you do so before you run the WLAN fix, or it may not find your correct gateway and it may error out. I'm not going to run that. I've already got one running in the background. But what it does by pinging your default gateway is it's going to keep that interface active, so you can continue to manage this thing remotely. That's one of the weird quirks I ran into with Raspberry Pi, along with other things like the USB slots not having enough power for multiple components at times, and there's some fun quirks, but overall it doesn't work too bad. The text editor, whoops. You'll find sometimes that using the stylus can be kind of quirky, but text editor is going to open up a text editor for you, and then there's an on-screen keyboard that you can use to type whatever you want, and then save that file by using the file save, and then you'll be able to access it later. Now, one of the things I'm waiting on tomorrow, hopefully, is kind of a micro keyboard to toss into a case with this micro Bluetooth wireless. Obviously, it's not wireless. I guess Bluetooth keyboard would be the correct term. The on-screen keyboard isn't bad, but you can see that there's a couple of USB cables on the left side here plugged in. One of them goes to a functional keyboard, full-size one. I find that the on-screen keyboard can be a bit rough at times, so I'm thinking I'm going to test out this micro keyboard and let you guys know how well it works, and include it in the build list. And that's going to give you another option if you need to type a lot. It'll be a more efficient way to type. All right, next function is the interface details, and this is going to open up a script in a second here. Some of these things that run on graphical interfaces take a second to open up, so just be patient with them. It's just how fast the hardware is on the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi 2 has more hardware. I'm trying to work on getting a hot swap of this image over to newer hardware, but you'll find with Raspberry Pis, and I'll mention this in the build, there's a lot of issues with SD card dependencies as far as which ones they can use and which operating systems mesh well. So far I've had no luck. I need to try a different model SD card, different brand. But anyway, that command there will open up and show you kind of what your current IP address is assigned to your different interfaces, wireless versus Ethernet, ETH0, whatever, and you can switch over and check them all out. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. That's basically just to show you what your current configuration is. Down at the bottom, there's 3 functions. One of them is hidden. Occasionally it will show itself, depending on how the web page renders. The power down button, I'm not going to push that. That does work. It will shut this thing down. I'm also waiting on in the mail, other than the micro keyboard. I'm waiting on a toggle switch USB cable so that you can physically power off the power going to this thing. I've been powering it on this Anchor kind of USB charger battery like you would have for a cell phone, so that you can recharge it if you have nowhere to plug it in. And it's kind of a large one. I'm not going to move the webcam. I don't want to mess it up because it's pointing at the screen. But anyway, it's got 4 power icons, and I was up to the third one. Not even sure if it was fully charged to the third one, and it ran it for like 13 hours yesterday while I was doing some development. So ideally, I'm going to get a smaller one and kind of put it off to the right side of the case there of the Raspberry Pi, and that'll allow it to fit in this case, but yet still provide a decent amount of battery. This thing doesn't drain those too quickly, so you're going to be able to run it for a long time, and then all you need to do is charge back up whatever you're using for a battery, and you'll be good to go again. Anywho, over to the other 2 buttons down there. Switch to pen test and switch to active. We're going to go to active first. Pen test I'll show you last. So active is going to take us over to a different tool set. Also, if you minimize the interface, you'll see that in the lower right corner of the screen there, we switched over to network active. The wallpaper will be set to whatever mode you're currently in, because the mode is kind of important to recognize if you're trying to keep your device from talking on the network so you don't trip port security. So if you're not sure what you're in, you can check your wallpaper. It's going to change with every function that you switch over from. So the network analyzer has, in the active mode, has a couple different functions. There's a couple that are the same, so I won't cover them, like the scratch pad, the notepad, the draw, which is the DIA program again, DHCP details. The 3 new functions that you have is ping test, trace route test, and speed test. Speed test is going to actually reach out to a well, you've seen the speed test online in your browser. It essentially does the same thing, but from a CLI. And again, that one does log every time that it runs. It's going to tell you you're up and down. So ping test and trace route test are going to open a GUI, and the keyboard comes up with them. Again, the external keyboard I think is going to be more efficient for this. They both open up by default and ping your local host IP address. You can see that there's a graphical representation down on the bottom of how many went through and what their speed was, or their response time in milliseconds. So you can just click up into that field, switch over to the keyboard, and you can start typing. It's going to type in that field since it was the last active. If you're going to use the on-screen keyboard, you can drag it. You can even drag it down if you want initially. That way you can still see the keyboard, and you can, click up here and start changing the IP address, and you can see it changing down there. And then when you get the IP in you want and you hit ping, it's going to run its test, and then you can move the window up if you want. It's just one of the issues with having being kind of trapped into a low resolution. There's only so much you can do with that because the Raspberry Pi is limited. So back into the active tool set. Trace route kind of brings up a similar interface, so you can run trace routes. Pretty self-explanatory. Speed test, as I said, runs a CLI-based speed check, essentially finding the... Okay, I may have just edited that, depending on what the video feed could see, just based off some information it showed. But yeah, it's going to do a down and up test for the speed test, and it's going to save a log of it and also open a clean web interface to show you what the results were. The 3 bottom functions you've already seen, as I mentioned, so we're going to switch over to pen test mode. A lot of the bigger buttons you can hit with your finger and not be too much of an issue. Some of the smaller ones the stylus works better for. I recommend taking the stylus and tying it off to whatever case you use so that you always have it with you there. So bottom 2 functions, power down and switch back to analyze. That's going to bring you back to analyze or shut it down. So we've already covered those. Bottom 3 commands we've already covered, although the net draw is actually incorrect. That should be ZenMap to scan subnets, but I'll get that fix made before release tomorrow. That's a pretty easy fix. Port scan is going to open up, and I bring the on-screen keyboard up as well to help you out in case you don't have a physical keyboard. if you get a physical keyboard and you don't want the on-screen keyboard for anything, these scripts are pretty easy to modify, and they're pretty human readable to where you'll be able to rip out the portion of the script that opens the keyboard and just run this. So you can see that it opens up and does a port scan on yourself. And 80 is open for the web server, 22 is open for SSH. VNC is open. I'll cover remote management last, as far as how you can remotely manage this NetPi. The only gripe I have with the small resolution is that, yep, I closed out one too many things. But the only gripe I have with the small resolution is that the exit icons in the upper right can be kind of tricky to hit. I'll try and see if there's a way to increase toolbar size within Linux, just overall Linux, nothing specific to any application. Wireshark. We've all seen Wireshark. Designed for a little bit higher resolution, although it doesn't do too bad. You're not going to do any analyzing here, obviously, but you can throw it on and you can do a capture of packets, and then you can export them for later. So if you scroll down on the interface, you can see the different network interfaces, and then click Start. And I stopped it pretty quick there, but you can see some ICMP packets. That's actually from my wireless keep alive script running. But then at that point, you could save the script, or save the packet capture, access it from another Windows or Linux box remotely, and do your analyzing from there. So this is kind of a expedient in the field packet capture. WarDrive is going to let you. All right, brief edit there. WarDrive shows my SSID, which I need to change, so I'm not going to show that output, but essentially it pops up a graphical interface where you can create a new scan, and you can see all wireless networks that are surrounding you. It'll show you their dB signal strength. It'll show you some attributes as far as if they're running WPA to WPA, WEP, that sort of thing. And it lets you just collect some metrics on what you got for wireless networks nearby. No current exploitation methods for wireless networks if you're trying to do your own internal security audits. But since this is a Linux box, you can manage it remotely and add your own tools into it later. And then with them added, you could obviously call them separately. Now, if you switch your view back over to the screen share here, I'm going to, what am I going to do? Start a VNC session. So you can see that you can just go ahead and VNC right into this thing. I'll put the basic credentials. You can change them later if you want, if you feel the need. But you can basically do anything that you want from here that you are doing at the actual device itself. So that's a neat way to manage it. And as well, obviously, you can also just open up a good old PuTTY session or whatever your console program is, your terminal program, and then you can jump into it and run whatever commands you need to do. So it's an easy way to remote into it and install software, maybe if you've got it hooked up to the network and you want to add some additional features, because anything you install extra, it's just not going to be in the web interfaces that open up, but it's still going to be a tool that you're able to use on your interfaces. So if you install some sort of I don't know, some scanning software or anything like that, and you want to use it on your Ethernet interface, that's fine. It's just not in the initial user interfaces that open up for the pen test, active, or stealth. You can still call it from, you can make your own script on the desktop, you can modify those web pages, or you can just remote into this device and call it remotely. Or if you have a keyboard, you can open up a terminal window, switching back to the webcam view. You can open up a terminal window right there, and then you can start typing whatever you want to type. So those are the two ways to remotely manage it. I'm also intending to turn on a TFTP daemon in order to allow you to do iOS polls from it. So you can keep iOS image files right on the share of this device. There's also a share. By default, there's two shares, one for web and one for the scripts, as well as logs. I have file sharing there for your iOS files, whatever you want to do, and camera. I don't have a camera on this device. There is a NetPi camera. I'm not going to put it in the build, but if you want to add that on, there's a lot of documentation. It's not too hard to add an actual physical camera to this device. Web, if you go into NetPi, that's going to be where your 3 different modes are. Those are where you can go in and edit the pages if you add your own functions later or change them, and it's all pretty easily explainable. I'm also going to have all that on the GitHub repo. That's about it. There is a status page that you can remotely access as well, and that's going to show you details about uptime, memory usage, disk space usage, who's currently logged in, the host name, and also the network interfaces and what they're currently assigned. So obviously in order to hit this, you'd need to know the IP address of what it has. So this only provides so much use to you. Although if you know your wireless and not whatever the cable is plugged into, that might help you out. But just another useful remote management ability or remote status ability. So my setup physically, I've got the NetPi in a kind of a case, and that case zips up. There's kind of a mesh on the top side of it there that I intend to put the keyboard in, hold it in there. And the battery, like I said, I'm going to try and tuck down in this bottom side. There's no ports there, nothing to use, so I'm going to tuck it down in there and then loop the USB cable around to the top, because where that pink cable is, which unfortunately is all I had, that pink cable is where the power is on the NetPi. So that's going to be where the battery connects to. So I'm going to get a short cable with an angled connector so that it's not as long sticking off and it fits better in there. And I'm going to run that to the battery and then have the power switch attachment in line to it. What else? I already mentioned I'm waiting on the micro keyboard and the toggle USB switch. Planning on releasing tomorrow. I'll try and wrap this up because it's probably already too long. Planning on releasing tomorrow, Monday, if all goes well, and I get to test a few more things. So keep your eyes out for one last post on this thing. Go ahead and when that post comes out, you don't have to do so much on this one, but when that post comes out, try and share it as much as you can. Tweet it, submit it to your favorite network forums, whatever you want to do. Try and get this project out there since it's open source. I feel like it might be a good tool for network admins or analysts or anyone studying maybe for CCNA or entry-level networking guys that want to set something up on their home lab, or even experienced guys that don't want to throw a bunch of money into a net tool, commercial alternative. And that's about it. If you want to donate, I got a donate ability up on blamethenetwork.com/netpi. That's the initial write-up that I did a while back. There'll be a new link tomorrow, or I'll move that one and put the new content there or something. And you can donate to my beer fund. I don't know. I'm going to try and keep doing some open projects like this, PHP, IPAM, all that good stuff. So that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for watching.